So, hello everyone for this week's creative astrology class on Soul Tribe online. It takes place live, and you may be watching this afterwards on my YouTube channel. So you can subscribe to Soul Tribe with lots of wonderful daily practices and astrology and take part in this live conversation. So that part is not going to be recorded. So today's going to be our second soiree into Circe, who is just mind-blowing, really. It's like her field just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, I perceive that we might do around 5 sessions on her because she just feels like you can't pin her down. She's so huge. I have this friend Kiki from Germany and from Austria actually, and she says you cannot pin these dark goddesses down, and it's so true. But I wanted to start with the new moon because the new moon is happening today in England anyway. It's a really amazing new moon. So what you have is the sun and the moon together, which they are conjunct when you have a new moon. And they're 20 degrees Scorpio. And then we have this lineup of Mars, Ceres, and also the asteroid Child in there. And almost straight opposite this is Uranus. So Uranus opposing this new moon can really bring like insights and sort of lightning strikes of going deeply into our patterns, our shadows, and maybe being able to see things in new ways. So where the new moon is happening is Gene Key 43, and I've been having another look at this gene key. It's not one I have in my profile, but it's very, very interesting. And it's in the 7 sacred seals. It's the 4th sacred seal of Epiphany. So it moves from deafness to insight and then to Epiphany. So you might perceive that like this new moon with Uranus, it's a planet that brings these like clarity, insight moments. So the capacity for having new insights today is really, really big. And I know that's been happening to me and through the usual way, through the shadow self being triggered, but being able to see it and go, oh my God, you know, I'm really getting a deeper and deeper kind of insight into the particular conditions where my wounded child you know, is kind of activated or triggered, and the flight-fight response in that, the kind of drawing away from others. Yes, so it's a very powerful new moon, and the other aspect of it, which has been very kind of current for me, and this taps into Circe and the purification of the field of magic. Gene Key 43 talks about, so this is Richard Rudd talking in the Gene Keys, by the way. Sometimes take that for granted. So he's talking about like a survival level where we might wish for and try to create things that meet our own survival needs. So we're kind of trying to fill our own bank account. We're trying to put ourselves out there in the world, you know, make a mark on the world. But in some sense, we're coming from quite a fearful place when we're coming from a very fearful place, actually, when we're in the survival mode. And so we're carrying that energy of fear through what we're doing. And this is one of the things I perceive that we're purifying in the field of money at the moment. So the next level is service. So it's a kind of a turnaround inwardly, and it's an expansive feeling to be manifesting in the world our gifts and our service to others, because our attention is really about what the other people are getting, not what we're getting. But in that flow of pouring out our cup, so to speak, we know that that energy is going to flow back to us, and the open-heartedness, the generosity actually opens those streams of prosperity in a way that we can never attain in that sort of narrow fear survival mode. And then the third mode is surrender. And how I've experienced this, I actually had an experience through Gene Key 32. So if you're interested in this, go and read that Gene Key around the whole money issue as well, because it's about reaching a surrendering of Gaia completely supporting us. So it's like we are an integrated part of the ecosystem, and in that we completely trust our needs will be met, and the energy is kind of, as I see it, sort of flowing in a Taurus kind of way, as in this kind of Taurus, although Uranus is in Taurus as well. So we kind of enter an amazing, like, super abundant energy stream. So that's the backdrop of the new moon. And obviously with the new moon, with Ceres, the mother goddess, we've got child, and we've got Mars, which in the gene keys represents our, our inner child. Then there's a lot around the potential, I feel, for the healing of our inner child and the sort of nurturing of ourselves, our mother nurturing, which just feels to me like the absolute key. Whatever's going on, whatever we've been triggered by, if we can bring online our inner mother nurturing or inner father nurturing, it's like we completely own what's going on with ourselves, and therefore we're able to make a breakthrough, which this 43 is called breakthrough as well in human design. Okay, so what about Circe then? So Circe actually today just moved into Gene Key 53, line 1. No, sorry, I'm saying that wrong. 54, line 1. Let me just check my notes here. Yeah, so 54, line 1, but opposing is that 53, which is this energy of superabundance that I kind of perceive as I'm talking about that surrender level. So the 54, this leads from greed. So we could also relate this to greed is that kind of survival level. We want it for ourselves, or we want it for our own group or our own tribe. And then it moves into aspiration, which is just by its nature much more expansive and open-hearted. And then this one, actually, the highest frequency is ascension. So I'm quite excited that Circe has moved into this gene key right now. And for those of you who've been on the Venus journey, you may recall that one of the Venus star points that we did a whole year on was the 54, line 4. And so it feels like we're all pretty immersed in this this energy, this trajectory of moving out of greed, sort of selfishness, and into these higher expansive realms of prosperity consciousness. So what's been interesting for me with Circe is I've always had this like really strong aversion to using mantras or rituals to create money. And as a result, I've lived most of my life very poor. Although I've had times where I've had really well-paid jobs, and then but most of my life I've sort of been living on an edge. And I won't even say poor, because even though I've not had much money, I've always had access to beautiful places and nature and friends, and I've always lived in amazing houses, even when I've not had much money. But I have had this, I almost feel like in many other lives, I was probably a nun or a monk or whatever. And I've taken these vows of, the vows about not having money. And that runs pretty deep in me. And so through Circe, what I'm discovering, though, is that I'm completely in alignment with wishing and actually acknowledging, because it's not even about wishing. We already are actually completely supported by Gaia's ecosystem. It's only our mind that's telling us we're not supported by it. So we're actually, when we go into the surrender mode, in complete alignment, I feel, with Gaia's energy. So through Circe, I've almost managed to find a way of doing magic or sorcery that I feel is in the realm of purification and for the benefit of all, rather than just the benefit of myself. And I have done those rituals, and we all have. And I was looking up. I googled yesterday like mantras for prosperity. I felt this aversion again, because they all pop up. You can use this one to make money, and it feels like so not the intention of these ancient Sanskrit writings and mantras, that they're used in that way. But in the miracle mantra on Soul Tribe that most of us are going to, it feels so beautiful, so aligned. Like, this is what these beautiful mantras are for. And then we hold everyone's wishes. Some people are wishing for prosperity for all, love for all. So it just feels like this is the shift that I'm connecting it to Circe. So it would be interesting to see if you feel that. And it's interesting, she's gone into this 54, which is all around greed, moving to aspiration and ascension. So I feel that kind of confirms I'm on the right track for me anyway. Okay, so the other area with Circe, I've been reading this wonderful book called Circe by Madeline Miller. So it's a novel, but it's based on the mythical story of Circe. And if you're into it, I really recommend it. I'm really gripped by the whole thing. And so I wanted to just talk about the use of magic around sex and relationships, because this is another huge area where I feel we're purifying our field. But actually, before I do that, this is what I feel is important about Circe as well. So she's a goddess who likes humans, and they're few and far between, actually. So she actually meets Prometheus, who gave humans fire when she's younger, and he's being whipped for giving the humans fire, and she's very curious about why he did it, and she gives him some ambrose secretly. But she falls in love quite a lot with human men. And what she discovers, though, is that she has these powers of magic, And the powers of magic, to me, are very interesting because if you read deeply into the stories, they're about sacred power spots on the earth, and they're about plant medicine. So her sorcery actually is coming through Gaia. And then you have the gods who may grant wishes, gods, goddesses. But she is, her father's the sun god Helios, who is a titan. He's a very powerful god. And her mother is a water nymph called Perseus. And so she has this very otherworldly quality through this combination of her parents, neither of whom are remotely interested in her. And she's called Circe, which means hawk, because she has yellow eyes and this quite high voice. And both her parents are very dismissive of her. And I kind of feel reading the story and just going through my own dad's death and my relationship with him and my partner, that this longing for the masculine love and attention arises from our father not giving us that in the first place. So it's interesting to consider the Ceres and Mars and the child energy in all of this, because it feels like, you know, Circe's wounds are not being seen by her parents. That's her first wound. And so she takes us out into the world, this longing to be loved. Okay, so I'm going to show you a bit of art now. And this is part of the story as well, where it's discovered, like she actually confesses to some of these things she does when she's jealous, but it turns out all her siblings also have magical powers, and the gods like Zeus and her father really don't like this, that they have these magical powers. And so that's interesting as well, because our whole culture, whether it's the Greek Roman pantheons or Christianity, other religions tend to project God outside of ourselves. And one of the things I find with Circe and Vesta, the priestess, is they're about our inner sovereignty and our experience of God within ourselves. Okay, so this presentation, we're going to look a bit at John William Waterhouse's art. He was a pre-Raphaelite artist. Okay, so this is one of Circe's jealousy stories, where she misuses, I mean, you have to interpret it really, but most people would say she misused her energy here, her magical powers. So she falls in love with this fisherman called Glaucus, who is a human man. And while he's sleeping, she finds out that there's this island that's very powerful, and she takes him there. And while he's sleeping, she does something with the flowers that turn him into an immortal being. So he now has blue skin, and he's effectively a merman, is what she turns him into. And part of why she does this is because she can't marry anyone who's not a god or who's not immortal. So her reason for turning him into a god is so that she can marry him. But what happens is that he actually falls in love with Scylla, who is another water nymph, and he's talking about marrying her. And Circe gets very jealous, and she creates another potion, and she pours it into Scylla's place where she swims. And it's interesting, the spell, because it's all about bringing Scylla's ugliness that she perceives inside, because Scylla behind Glaucus's back is, you know, he's just this sort of stupid merman who with a blue tail and stuff, and so she's not very nice about him. And so Circe brings out these kind of monstrous qualities to the surface. So this is the detail actually of that painting. So here we have Circe the sorceress, and this is another one of John William Waterhouse's paintings of Circe offering Ulysses and his men who arrive on her island. She's now exiled because of what she did to Glaucus and Scylla. She's exiled to an island, and these Ulysses and his men arrive, and she turns the men into pigs, and she keeps Ulysses there on the island for a year. Now, in my last video, I talked about this whole thing about initiation, Circe as an initiator of the masculine, and we're going to look at that again in a sec. So this is John William Waterhouse's third depiction of Circe. So he loved painting these Greek and Roman goddesses. He loved the feminine, which a lot of pre-Raphaelites did. But he paints Circe 4 times, and that's the most he paints any of them. So I kind of became a bit fascinated, and intuitively I thought, oh, I want to look at his chart and see where Circe is in his chart. So this is his final picture of her, Circe the sorceress, and you can see there in the background we've got some sacred geometry. She's an astronomer, you know, she knew many languages, so she's a very learned woman. I like that he's depicted her here as that. Okay, so what I found out, which was amazing, synchronicity, is that John William Waterhouse is born the 6th of April, 1849. So just to show you what's going on with the sun there, can I open this more? So, okay, so the sun is in the 51 line 3. Now, this 51st gene key is like the par excellence, I would say, gene key of initiation. And it's very much for me this Uranus kind of boom energy of clarity and insight. And it's the programming partner of the 57. And then we have the moon as well. So he's actually born on a full moon, because we can see here that the moon is opposite the sun in the 57, which is that clarity insight. Now, the design sun is in the 54, which is where Circe is now. And the design earth is in the 53, which we talked about, the superabundance of the earth. So this just feels like kind of real deeper confirmation of what I'm talking about. And so Circe was in gene key 24 when he was born, which is moving out of addiction, which is basically doing the same thing over and over again, and moving into our genius. And he certainly found his genius, that's for sure, in his paintings. Okay, so amazing. The discovery of Circe takes place exactly 6 years later on the 6th of April, 1855. So you can see the same activation sequence, the 51, 57, 54, 53, present in Circe's discovery chart. And she herself is in gene key 32, line 6, which is the life work of Soul Tribe. And it's all about, for me, it's about the veneration of the goddess and the mysteries of many, many traditions is embodied in this gene key. So this human design cross, I was quite interested in what is this cross, and it's called the right angled cross of penetration. And this cross carries the energy of starting or initiating something new. You will always have an ambition to change things or begin anew. With opportunities that come to you, you will much prefer to get in on the ground floor than go with something old and established. You are here to be an initiating force with penetrating energy and be recognized for your contribution. So if we imagine that Circe has this penetrating energy as an asteroid, and so she can actually help us begin new things, begin new ways of doing things. And then the new thing she began was this magic of it's called the Pharmika, the witch, the use of Gaia's magic, the plants and the power places. This is actually what she did. Okay, so yeah, so this, I just wanted to show you the discovery chart. I can't make it any bigger, unfortunately, but all I wanted to point out here is that we have Uranus and the North Node in Taurus. So this is maybe 2 times before or 1 time before. I haven't worked that out, when Uranus was in Taurus, and Uranus is in Taurus again right now. Exactly conjunct the North Node, and they're conjunct Venus as well. So this energy shows us that this is an initiation of the Venus goddess energy that Circe carries, and it has this breaking open ability that, just feels like it appears over and over to me in everything I look at, that Circe has this breakthrough, breaking out of kind of energy. Okay, so that's me done. I'm going to pause the recording, and yeah, we've got about 15 minutes. I'd love to hear if you're having any of these breakthrough experiences, if you have been working with your Circe, where she is, and any realizations you've had about her, or any insights today with the new moon as well, actually. So I'm going to pause this, and anyone feel free to jump in.